Hello and welcome to the Ramen Profitable Podcast. My name is Atish Mazumdar and I'm here with my co-pilot, the great and powerful Chris Scott. And this is the podcast about testing out your ideas, taking your first steps, and really overcoming those obstacles on the way to entrepreneurship. Enjoy.
First Christmas alone.
First Christmas alone.
Just the two of you as an engaged couple.
Yeah, still.
Speaking of which, I tried to cancel my tux rental.
Yeah.
Because I was thinking extra $200 around Christmas time.
And they told you verboten.
Yeah, they're like, oh no, we have to confirm with the event planner.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm in the window. I'm like way outside of the 21-day return rental window.
Here's the wonky part. Obviously, so what they don't want is a return because what they're saying is, oh, you don't have to cancel. You can just postpone the date, which is what's happening. But It's like, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, half the reason why I went with the whole tux rental is because I think you were saying we could wear, if we had whatever we had, we could wear that. It doesn't sound like you're adamant about having everybody be matchy-matchy.
Well, I wasn't.
Oh, it was Tori?
Turns out I was wrong to say that.
Okay. Well, then never mind.
But it's like, that's kind of because what Sean did, he was like, I'm just going to order, because they said that they could send swatches of exactly that suit. And he's like, because I have a charcoal gray suit, and if it matches up, then whatever. And I was like, oh yeah, I'm not going to fault you for that. Like, that's fine. That should be fine. But also here's what I don't like. And what I have to say is this service is really convenient. They say that their size fitting algorithm will work better than, whatever.
Right.
Because I had an experience with a different suit rental company that will remain nameless because I don't want to be just, shitting on a company that, they probably do good work or something. I just had a negative experience, but it was for my buddy's wedding.
Okay.
Right. And this was right before COVID kicked everything off and just ruined everyone's plans. But I get this suit that, they say like, oh, actually, because I put in the sizes of what I want, because it's like, I know that I'm I'm in between a 40 regular and a 42 regular and like all this kind of shit, right? Like I know where I'm at. And then they say, oh, well, based on your height and weight and whatever, really you should be doing these sizes. And I was like, all right, these guys are the experts. Let's do it. Whatever. It came in. It fit like shit. It was wide and long and just ridiculous. And I told him, I was like, hey, I got back on. I was like, hey, I'm like swimming in this thing. Like this doesn't, whatever. Because I know that the way that they think about their sizes, and I don't mean what I'm about to say, I don't mean in a pejorative sense at all. But the way that they think about their sizes is for white men.
Right. No, exactly.
It's not, I am a genetic hybrid of two of the skinniest types of people on the planet. It's like, I know my body. I know that my height is this and my weight is this, but everything is just all very compact. Like, trust me on that. And they just didn't take so then I sent it back and got a new fitting and whatever, and it still looked like shit. So, and they were like, oh, we're going to get you an extra short jacket. And it's like, motherfucker, I am 6'2". I am not an extra short anything. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
If 6'2" is your extra short, then your sizing is shit. Like, that's basically, there's no way around that. So I went with this other company, to do my suit thing because I had that negative experience for my buddy's wedding. And then there's, the worst part is because now they're actually doing, because they scaled down, that was right when quarantine happened, so they scaled down to a 10-person ceremony, so we were still like within the legal guidelines at that time. Mm-hmm. So now they're doing their ceremony again in January, and they stuck with the same company.
What?
Yeah, I was like, why are we doing this again? You look like shit, I look like shit, and it's like I can look like shit for a day. That's fine because it's not about me. It's whatever.
Right.
But he looked like shit. So it's like, why are you doing this? Yeah. So I went with this other company, and their purportedly better or good or whatever, but here's the one serious negative, or like the one thing that I don't like. They have you create a look that's, you know, the suit, the pants, you know, whatever. And for people who don't have anything, I was like, yeah, here's the tie, here's the shoes, here's, you know, socks or whatever. So that if you don't have anything, here's everything that you would need in one package. But what I've discovered, because I, you know, what I texted out to everybody was basically like, hey, if you have some of this stuff, like if you have a black tie or if you have a black shoes or something like that, just use yours. There's no sense to pay for it from them, right? Like I'm totally fine with you using yours, but they don't allow you to X out items from there. So I would have to create custom looks for each person depending on what they have and what they don't have. That's bullshit. Like, you have to have a smarter system than that. There's no reason that you have to, like, I understand that there are some people who want to lock in everybody to exactly the same look, and that makes sense. But you should at least add the option of modularity if possible. Like, why not?
Oh, because it's less of a...
Well, yeah.
Less of a sale to them. The numbers would go down.
Of course, yeah. The numbers would go down because there are some people who are doing the whole damn thing, and then there's some people who are like, oh, I've got shoes, or oh, I've got, you know, whatever. So, point is, now we have, you know, an extra 260 days or so to figure out. So fuck it, who cares?
Yeah. Well, I was just thinking it'd be nice to have that extra $200 around Christmas, so then I could buy like little knickknacks now. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's just like, and I just rented it then because I had the money then, and I figured I don't know when my next job's going to be.
Right.
But now I got some jobs coming up. It's like it'd be nice to have a little bit of, you know.
Yeah, of course.
Money right now to buy Atish another book.
I love the books, man. That's actually this sales rep kind of put me in an awkward place in a similar sort of way. So like we closed this really huge deal finally, and everything like finally kind of came together, and it turns out it was the largest deal of this type in the company's history.
Ooh.
So everyone's giving everyone pats on the back and shit like that, and I'm feeling pretty good. But then this sales rep, it's like, he puts me in this awkward place, and maybe it's because I'm not bold enough, or you tell me how you would handle this situation, or if you would feel awkward like I did. But he puts me in this weird place by saying, and it's very nice, and it's very generous, but it just feels weird. He says, and this is on a public chat. Like, that's the thing. If it was in private, I wouldn't feel so weird about it. But he says, name your gift to Tish. You know the percentages, so you know Megan and I can handle it. We owe you, honestly. That was really hard work. Definitely not easy. Thank you. And it's like, look, dude, that actually, it means the world to me that you say, like, thank you and you appreciate what I do. But I can't ask for something from you. It's like, that seems so weird. I don't know. Does that seem weird to you?
It does seem weird, but also I think you should take it to the next level, like one up them, like play along with the game. It sounds like, you know, they're trying to congratulate you in the public sense.
Right.
And then like kind of, it sounds like they're making a joke about, oh, you know how much money we made. So you know how big of a gift you can afford.
Right.
Pick a huge gift.
Yeah, Tesla.
Yeah, just go, Tesla Cybertruck, please. Yeah. Or something ridiculous like that, you know? Just like, you know, play off of it. Say one of these, please. Also, great job to everybody else that also worked on the project. You know, be a team player.
Yeah. Okay. See, I was gonna do that's funny that you put it that way, because I was going to do that, but in exactly the opposite way. So I was gonna congratulate the team and whatever, be a team player, but I was gonna say, man, I'm really burning through books during quarantine. Send me your favorite book. That way, it's like I'm offsetting in a humorous kind of way, but I'm shooting for like a $12 thing. You know what I mean? But like,
right.
You're saying make it a joke and take it the other direction. Be like, oh yeah, you know, a hot air balloon would be really great this time at like moving into spring.
Or look up like a $500 bottle of scotch or something. You know, something that you would technically enjoy. Maybe they won't get you that big fancy one, but maybe they'll get you a $200 bottle of scotch, which is still really nice.
That's what I'm saying, is that they will though, but in a sense, I kind of don't want them to. Like, I do want...
No, you're in corporate America. You need these gifts. These are the only thing that are going to get you through the work weeks. These are the only things that are going to get you through the next big deal. It's like, at least I'll get a bottle of scotch after this, you know?
Yeah, you know what? You're right. Ultimately, it's like, that is kind of the thing, because it's then I'm you know, in the next big deal, and I'm wondering, why the fuck am I doing this? Yeah, it's
Right.
like, you're right. Okay, so kind of play the game.
Play the game and know your worth. I just worked on earlier this year before the quarantine. I did a motorcycle racing school video.
Yeah, you were telling me about
course.
that. Yeah.
This last week they had a reshoot. They had one day of reshoots, and I was just me and my buddy. They hired us again, and my buddy Jaime was like, "What did I say the rate was for this again?" And I'm like, "You said $300 a day." And that's a rate you made. And he's like, "Oh, that's it. Why did I say that so low?" It's because you're an idiot at the beginning of the year. And you didn't realize that these people have a ton of money. And these guys have been super busy throughout the whole quarantine because everybody wants to ride motorcycles now because it's a solo thing you can do outside.
Right. There's no interaction with other people. You just kind of do your thing.
Right. And so...
and you intrinsically have a mask on, so it works.
Exactly, yeah. So I was like, why'd you quote him so low at the beginning of the year? It's like, this doesn't make any sense that you're charging so low. And it's just because he's still stuck in that mindset that, they did me a favor because I'm working for them. It's like, no, you're making them $1 million, a cajillion dollars, $1 billion.
Yeah, that's fair. I guess that's a good point. And that actually brings me to something. This will be a topic in the future, but I am giving a reading assignment, or not giving a reading assignment, but here's something that I think the podcast should cover. But I doubt it's on Blinkist, or Blinklist, or what is it called?
Blinkist, yeah.
Blinkist.
You're right. Mm-hmm.
So I doubt it's on Blinkist. It might be, but also this isn't a conventional book. It's not something that you have to like read through, and it's free. So that's number one. You can find it online. It's totally free. So there's no upfront cost. And it's something that it's not important to read. It's not a book in the traditional sense that you read it front to back. It's kind of more that you can pick and choose and like whatever kind of goes in. It's called, do you know who Naval Ravikant is?
No.
Okay, I didn't think so. Not a whole lot of people do. Although he is like kind of blowing up because of Tim Ferriss and stuff like that. So people who are into Tim Ferriss know who he is, which hopefully, one day Ramen Profitable and Tim Ferriss listeners, have a crossover effect. I think we've got good content for Tim Ferriss listeners, I would say. But it's called the Almanac of Naval Ravikant, so spelled Naval Ravikant, and the book is mostly just about thoughts that he's published on like Twitter or stuff like that, or like blog posts, because he's a super intelligent guy, but he also is all about like happiness and doing whatever. And so you reminded me of this because you were talking about like, why'd you set your rate so low? And one of the things he says that if you want to actually, scale up or be successful in life and all this kind of stuff, he says, set an aspiration, like right out of the get-go, even if you're not in a freelance work kind of environment, set an aspirational hourly rate, like whatever that is. Mm-hmm. And anything that you do, if it would cost, how does he phrase it? Let's see, I'm going to butcher this. If it costs more than that hourly rate to do that thing, do it yourself. Learn how to do it yourself and do it. If it would cost less, outsource it. There's no point in like, and so that's something that I really thought, specifically with me setting up my SMART goals last week and then reading that, I was just like, yeah, I mean, eventually the idea is that I can lessen, my dependency on a regular check from a company once I reach, this, because there's always this blend, right? Like right now I still need that money because that way I can keep paying for all these supplements in bulk that like exist in my cabinets everywhere. But eventually that blend, I think, is going to get, like you can kind of do that. First, I just want to create a source of passive income. But eventually, if that keeps building and grows and grows and grows, maybe that's where I shift and turn into an Elephant Scout situation. You know what I mean? So I kind of want to figure out how one calculates a good hourly rate, whether it's aspirational, which is kind of a stretch goal, or it's kind of more logic based and kind of here's where I am right now. Here's what my services are worth based on the marketplace. And I'm going to bump it up just a little bit to make sure I'm profitable or whatever. So that was just one of the things that kind of crept out of that book. And I think that there's a lot of good information that would be good for ramen profitable listeners.
Yeah. I think it's the opposite. I think it's like you figure out your cost of living, like how much does gas cost, food, home, clothing, electricity, like all your bills. And then maybe you would probably build up upon that. It's like, oh, I want to live in $1 million home. My mortgage would be $1,000 a month or whatever it would be.
Yeah.
And then just raise it up that way. Maybe that's how you, and then, 52 weeks.
Yeah.
50 weeks, 40 hours a week.
Yeah. I like that. That seems pretty systematic. Like that seems pretty like not a scientific proof or, whatever, but it seems like it's really it's bound in terms of like your budget, which is real numbers that you can play with now, as opposed to some abstract idea of what you would like to make.
Right. And and you can definitely make larger goals within your personal budget. So like, let's say you're driving a 99 Honda Accord. Maybe you want to drive a 2020 Honda Accord. It's like, how much more is that car payment for you versus no car payment? Yeah.
Have you ever taken on a car payment?
No, I haven't.
Yeah.
I've always
me neither.
Just bought them straight out. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's kind of my thing. That's what I was telling my buddy is that like, I don't think I ever I always want to be able to buy my car in cash. And sure, that might mean that, like right now I'm driving a 2013 and it's great. And, I'm always going to be driving older cars or whatever until I get to the point where I can just go onto the lot and it's like, oh, let's talk about rust proofing and financing. And I just want to be able to say, nope, here's the cash. I'm walking. Like, that's all.
Right.
Like,
yep.
I don't want to have this conversation where you're going to take me into the back office and tell me what a great deal I'm getting. And then it turns out I'm getting fucked. You know what I mean? Like, that's not my idea of a good time.
Yeah, no, hard pass on that. It's just so skeezy how cars are sold.
Yeah, 100%.
And it's like the only thing that's being sold that's not really, it's not regulated. It's not the word, but it's like they don't have to put the real price tag on it. Like you have to, like everyone has to haggle it. It's just bizarre. Like you don't go to Target and haggle for toilet paper,
Right. Yeah. Or for instance, I never get the idea that to use the Target analogy, if I'm going there to buy some like shirts or something, right? I never go to Target thinking that like, man, I need to research what the value of a shirt is so that I make sure that I'm not like paying too much for this shirt.
Right.
But that's an exercise that we just agree is the case for a car. And it's like, maybe we should remove that underpinning problem, which is that we're getting screwed. Like, why are we allowing that to be a thing? We should all be way more transparent and say, yeah, I bought this car for this much. It is worth this much. Like, I don't know why we have to do this thing where it's like, oh man, I need to get online and figure out what the viability of this car. And also the idea of a depreciating asset like that kind of worries me, but that's besides the point.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. You buy you buy your shirts at Target versus buying them at Goodwill.
Yeah.
Right. There might be a hole in the shirt at Goodwill, but you got it at Goodwill, so whatever.
Yeah. It was a $2 shirt.
Yeah. You can resell at a vintage trunk show for $60.
Oh, that's the Gary V thing. Have you ever seen him do that thing?
No.
Yeah,
but I've been to a vintage shirt trunk show. It's like, oh, that's a cool shirt. How much is it? $70? No,
what?
Thank you. Yeah.
Oh my god. Yeah, that's a Gary V thing. Is he goes to garage sales and he goes to like Goodwill and stuff like that and buys all these really old like nostalgia toys like from the 80s and stuff like that, and then he flips them on eBay for a higher price.
Yeah. I have a friend that used to do that. He used to work there's a video store here that recently closed down, and he would buy like if they would scan eBay constantly, and if there was like a DVD that was that became, what's the word? Not vintage, but
called classic.
Not classic, but more of like out of stock. It's out of print, and it's like an older movie that's hard to find, but they had it because the video store's been around forever. And it's like $100 sell on eBay. They would definitely just sell the DVD instead of renting it out for $1 a week or whatever.
Right. Yeah. Did I tell you about that? My experience with something like that just recently?
No.
Okay. So there's this. So when I was a kid, we would go to the library often and get books on tape. Right. So this is before CDs. Even this was on tape.
Right.
And there's this particular book that was like about these dogs, cats, and whatever, and they can talk and shit like that. Whatever. But it was a mystery story. My love for mystery stories started then. Now it's kind of turned the corner into a more, perverse Swedish murder, like homicide kind of mysteries. That's where my head's at now. But before it was in this kind of thing. Anyways, and it was more like a radio play than it was just reading a book, right? Because there was sound effects and there was kind of music cues and stuff like that. And there was different voice actors for all the different characters. So it was more like a radio play than it was a book. So I was looking for this version because I like thought about that randomly, and I have Audible. So I went on and I just like bought it. And I was listening to it, and it wasn't the right one. And it turns out that this book has been redone a bunch of times because the first one was like from the 70s or maybe the early 80s or something like that. So I can't find that version on Audible. It doesn't exist. And it doesn't exist. Like I thought maybe I could find it on YouTube, but all you get on YouTube is a bunch of other people reading that book. And it's like, why would I want some random stranger from YouTube reading this book? It's like, that's the same as me reading the book to myself, you idiot. Like, anyways. So then I like kept on digging, and I found what most likely was the original version, because the original version, like the first one that they ever recorded from like the 70s or 80s, was the only one that had multiple voice actors. So that was
really?
the one that, because every other version was just a single person. And I thought for a while maybe he just did his voice differently, but it seems more likely that it was just multiple, people, because that kind of holds with the radio play sort of motif. So I find it on Amazon, that specific one with all the different voice actors, but the only version that they have it in, first of all, definitely not Prime. It's like from different sellers on Amazon, right? So definitely not Prime, but the only version that they have it in, and they only have 3 copies, is on an LP. And I don't have a record player, but I was seriously sitting there and I was like, should I buy this anyways? Because then I can have it, and then I get a record player.
Well, that's a new thing now. Not a new thing. It's been around for a while, but people buying records is
yeah.
Yeah,
And that was kind of the idea. I was like also okay with the notion of like turning my office into this, kind of more like schwanky, put together kind of thing. But then by the time because then I was justifying the purchase of like a whole bunch of other shit just based on my, like, the math didn't quite work out. But then eventually when I got to the point of actually pulling the trigger, all 3 copies are sold.
Oh, that sucks.
So I have no idea where I'm ever going to be able to find it again, because I couldn't even find it on eBay.
Which one did you say this was? Girl with the dragon tattoo?
No, no. That's what I'm into now.
Oh, this is something else from when you were a kid.
Yeah, this is from when I was a kid. It was called Howladay, like HOWL, like howl.
Oh, it's like a teen book.
No, I think it's like a very children's book. It was like when I was 6 or something. Howladay Inn, HOWLIDAYINN.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, I had records too. I had records, not tapes, but it was I had a Sesame Street record player, and Big Bird was the needle. Like Big Bird's head was the needle, and you could play records of like He-Man stories, and it's like He-Man and Tila going against Skeletor.
Oh man, but like in a novelization format.
Yeah,
that's hilarious.
Yeah,
that's perfect. Man, well, after that walk down memory lane, or that nostalgia boost, I think I took up our entire time last time talking about my SMART goals. Do you have any SMART goals? I think because the original talk about the Elephant Scout SMART goals was on CSS. And I think we talked about that last time. But have they changed? Like, just as an update, have your kind of SMART goals changed at all, or are you still kind of on the same format?
I don't know. I think they're kind of on the same page, but I think they need to be updated a little bit. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I think my goals have gotten not so smart, but definitely goals. And I don't know. I had my notebook for last week to discuss my SMART goals, but someone took all the time.
Yeah.
And I forgot my notebook this week. So now I don't have my notes in front of me.
Oh, shit.
But maybe we can go through some ideas I have for goals, and then we could turn them into SMART goals.
Yeah, we can lock them down. Or, I mean, I say that without having heard anything, so I maybe can't. But
well, for me, this next year is going to be all about not. I guess branding is the wrong word, but brand awareness. So it's going to be about name recognition, building an audience, brand awareness. So that means things like a larger following on Instagram. We're going to launch this scripted podcast, which is probably going to be a lot like your Holiday Inn Express.
Yeah.
I want, X amount of listeners per episode. And so just converting all that into a SMART goal, I think, is something I haven't done yet.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, that's also kind of complex, because I think the methods with which you gain that brand awareness is like so broad and so diverse. Like like that can be like those, like that one singular topic can probably be split into 3 goals. Right. Because one of them can be a very social media driven, that's how you're going to get your awareness up in a broad spectrum. But then also the projects that you're doing and stuff like that, those are goals in and of themselves. And the amount of listens that you get and stuff like that, like those are goals individually. So it's like, but I kind of like that you have a kind of broad spectrum overarching goal in a sense, which is like just to increase brand awareness and whatever. And that one may not be particularly smart, but in the sense, not smart as in it's dumb, but rather not smart as in the SMART format.
Right.
But I think what that does is it underpins all your like motivations on your SMART goals into a specific channel. Like sometimes I think that's really good to have, because I think both of my SMART goals were actually about 2 different things. Yeah,
they were. Well, they're 2 different projects.
Yeah, 2 different projects, exactly. But I like kind of the thing that you have one umbrella sort of idea, and then you're going to have multiple SMART goals of basically that drive towards the same thing.
Right. It's kind of like in your business plan, you have a mission statement. That's driving all of your different segments of your business plan. So it's all a cohesive plan.
Yeah.
So that's kind of just in general, that's just the general goal of the year, is to build that up. Because with brand awareness, with the bigger audience, it's easier to make sales. It's easier to promote, to sell, to engage with an audience, to get to those 1,000 true fans that'll spend that $1,000 on you a year.
Yeah, and
$100 on you.
Exactly, and honestly, I think that there's like some easy ways that you could start to do that, because obviously once you reach that point, like this is kind of a loose ideation on that, but I think that there's some really obvious, like if there was something, like if there was a large enough following to the point where, because it's like not 100% of your audience is going to buy all your stuff, right? Like that would be a super unicorn scenario where everybody who follows, whoever, all buys his album or all buys his movie or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So that's not going to happen. But if you basically what you're saying is the larger your audience is, then even if you get 80% who will buy this cheap thing, 60% who buy this, it scales effectively, and therefore the larger audience you have, the more people are in each of those buckets. Yeah. So that's kind of the thing that, like, man, it would have been such a, like, if the audience was there for it, it's like at the same time as Eddie Mummy's release, if there was a purchase for just the stream or something like that, then there was a purchase for the stream plus a shirt, then the stream plus the shirt plus, whatever. And that way you kind of end up internally codifying where your numbers of fans are in terms of like where they're willing to follow. You know what I mean? Like it creates this sort of sales funnel where it's like, now that, for $60, I actually don't know how much things should cost. But
for $60, you get a lead pencil.
Yeah, you
A
get
number 2 pencil.
some bananas. You know? No, like for $60, they get the stream, they get a shirt, and they get, whatever. It's like those are really your top tier fans that are gonna like definitely watch your next movie. So then you can kind of have this predictable revenue stream based on just what you have been moving. And you get this predictable revenue stream where you now know that the next movie that you're going to release, you're like, I can count on this many streams. This many streams is probably likely, and then this many streams is my stretch goal. You know what I mean? So it kind of makes it a little bit easier to price things out or to kind of grade yourself on that scale. Because what happened, for instance, the company with which I work for, or with which I do work for, and I'm going to start, by the way, just for, if anyone's listening to back catalog, I referred to what I do all the time. I said the company name. I'm going to start distancing that a little bit, because obviously as I go more public and as my SMART goal was to kind of promote this podcast more and stuff like that, it puts me at more risk, or a greater risk, of having somebody from my company listen. So therefore I am not going to refer to anything anymore, or I'm going to refer to it, but only in a vague sort of sense, and not say where I work, who I work for, etc., that sort of thing.
We should come up with a fake name for the company.
Yeah, that'd be good. If I can come up with a fake or like an alter ego sort of thing for what I do and all that kind of stuff, that would be perfect. But
I listened to another podcast and they talk about screenwriting, and they always had like a fake movie that they would reference. So like when the studios are going to make the Rubik's Cube movie, then blah 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 blah. So then, but they're making a Rubik's Cube movie, so now they've had to change it, and now they're talking about the Uno movie. But I think they might be making an Uno movie, so they're like, "What's going on here?"
Uno movie?
I don't know. It might have been a joke, but it's probably going to happen. It's probably going to happen.
I mean, they made a Battleship movie, so now I don't like they'll make anything.
But we should come up with a fake name for your company.
Yeah, we should do that. I'll use like a code word or something. But anyways, the point being is that the company that I work for, this past year was really the first full year that we had selling, this gadget, right? And there's all kinds of interrupting things. There was COVID. There was a whole lot of social unrest. There's all kinds of different things that conflicted with the sale of this gadget. But from the sales data that we were able to pull, we realized that, what we need is now we need this gadget plus something that increases the cost, and we need a cheaper version of this gadget, because we saw that the market was dividing into two different streams: the people who were paying for it and then adding a whole bunch of stuff, but then trying to bargain us down on the stuff that they were adding on. And then the people who were just like, yeah, sorry, we can't meet that. It's not in our budget, or we can't move forward with that. Even though we need it or we want it, we can't move forward with it. So because of that, we were able to codify kind of where our pricing should be for these different offerings. So I think the same thing can bring a lot of clarity to Elephant Scout, because it's like and I think that goes hand in hand with that brand awareness, right? Is that like the more you have brand awareness, the more you can sell. I think you just said that, actually. Like, I think you basically just said that, like, the bigger brand awareness, the bigger audience you have, the more you can sell, the more stuff you have.
Right. So, I mean, that's the goal. I mean, I've always had this goal of making money while making movies. So it seems like it's definitely nowadays it's harder to sell a movie to Netflix, let's say.
Yeah.
Or to Warner Brothers, because they're all just going to streaming. And they're losing their theater revenue, and it seems like they're doing things to increase their profits, and so they're kind of taking advantage of the little guys, and so it's just something I've been thinking about.
Yeah. No, that's definitely a complex. I don't envy your position in that sort of sense, because I have no idea what's going on with that industry. Like, I really badly want to get back to theaters, but I haven't been to one. And like, I feel really guilty about it in a sense, because I'm one of these people who's like, no, we got to keep theaters around. I love going to the theater. But of course, I haven't paid 1 cent to go to a theater recently. So what good am I doing them really? But
Right.
but I totally get that. Well, if we were to make this a SMART goal, like I'm even gonna start even smaller on that. But like, if we were to make a SMART goal out of the brand awareness, just thinking about the specific part, it's like who, what, when, where, why. I mean, the why kind of goes into the relevance, so that kind of goes. But like, what's the time scale? Is this across the next year? Is this across the next 6 months? Is this across, what does your kind of internal estimation, what does your gut feeling tell you about building brand awareness?
It's all going to happen in January.
All of a sudden, dude, it'd be crazy if just January you hit and now you have like 3.2 million followers by the end of January. You've completely blown up and like,
yeah, that'd be crazy. But no, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
Well, we have this. We have an article coming out about Elephant Scout. It's been submitted to the publisher. It looks like it's being printed in February.
Great. Where on?
Tucson Lifestyle Magazine.
Fantastic.
So it's like everybody has a lifestyle magazine, but the idea was the audience that reads that are people with money, and and if they're in Tucson, they love Tucson, so they would want to support Tucson artists, which happens a lot.
Yeah.
And even the article, the way she worded it, she was hinting to a local revitalization project. Rio Nuevo. It's been around forever, but they're supposed to bring in like a baseball field to the downtown area.
Oh, yeah.
There's supposed to be a river walk, and then all the money like disappeared, and then new people took it over, and it's still around. And they're funding all these murals around downtown. I know you haven't been here in a long time, but there's a lot of like how murals are popping up everywhere. They're funding that here in Tucson. They brought in, I think, a fashion designer. They were part of the negotiations to bring in a fashion designer to Tucson to come here and design his next line for a year. And so it's an organization that's all about trying to revitalize or keep Tucson alive and thriving.
That's great, man. Sorry about that. The mailman showed up.
Mailman.
Yeah, it's
dog's worst enemy.
Well, it's not even just that. It's actually worse in our case because I've trained him to be perfectly fine with people. Like, he doesn't mind if people come up onto our lawn and deliver packages or something like that. But with the mailman, it's particularly invasive. It's particularly invasive because we don't have a mail box. We have a mail slot.
Oh.
So he's actively putting stuff into the house, and that disturbs Grizzly to no end.
Wow.
Okay, I took care of that. There we go. Yeah. Okay, we're good now. Yeah, that's great. So they're basically using that as a signaling to the Rio Nuevo group to be like, hey, here's another avenue for kind of the restoration of Tucson, or not the restoration, but the kind of glow up, if you will.
I guess glow up, but it's also partly not revitalization, but also not I want to say time capsule, but it's not time capsule. Documenting or
sure.
And so what is that called? It's gonna drive me nuts. Not registration, not register. Cataloging. Or you know what I'm trying to say.
I guess
you're making notes about what's happening in the current moment.
Oh shit. Yeah, what is that called? Documenting. There's a word for it, dude. Now I know what you're talking about.
You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, that's gonna bother me, and I'm gonna get it as soon as this podcast is over. That's the part that's gonna fucking destroy me. Yeah, whatever. Okay. So they're part of. Man, that's.
Nope, and if you Google it, it just takes you to the Notes app on your iPhone.
Yeah, okay. Well, whatever. They're doing that. Whatever that word we're searching for is, they're doing that.
Right, and so I've noticed about this film community, of course, is they're all about bringing back the Westerns, and nobody wants to see Westerns, really. I mean, I'm sure some people do, but obviously everybody in town wants to see a Western because we're in Tucson and there's an Old West town to the east and west of us, and there's one in the middle of town. So it's just like, of course they want to see Westerns. But I want to take an approach of capturing Tucson in the moment, highlighting, local scenes, restaurants. Mm-hmm. So they become this, that word I'm looking for, as like a part of history,
Right. Yeah. You're documenting the specific like place and time and the unique interactions that are a result of that.
Right. And then using that and with local talent, let's highlight local artists, clothing maker, music instrumenters, makers, musicians. I was getting there. I've lost all my words this morning.
Yeah, wow, you've completely lost function.
Indexing? No.
Indexing is my word, my catch-all word for a lot of stuff. Yeah.
All right. Anyway, but that's our approach, is to kind of have it be this freeze frame of Tucson in the moment versus, let's go back to the past and try and bring back the Old West, which is 100% an inaccurate representation of what the Old West was. Yeah. The Old West was more of a diverse landscape than we see in movie Westerns.
Right.
So, that's how I would be on board with making a Western, if we can diversify it. But then all the people in town that would want to be in it would be upset because they're just a bunch of old white dudes.
Yeah, that was kind of the interesting thing, that you did get like some diversity in cast in some of these older Westerns, like Fistful of Dollars or something like that. But that was really only because they were shooting them in Italy, and just completely dubbed, with the exception of maybe, Clint Eastwood or something like that. So it's like, but then as soon as it became just more of a schlep to do that, and they were filming Westerns here, you're right, it's just singular type, basically. Or like, that's kind of the deal with some of those Steve McQueen movies. It's like they're all kind of singular type.
Yeah. So,
which doesn't make sense, but that's whatever.
But either way, that's the idea of our brand, where so that's why I was happy with our having that business plan and the mission statement, having, our goal be diverse representation in film, with different stories, with different, representing different genders and ethnicities and abilities. And so having that kind of flow through this article that she wrote, and also hopefully pitching that to this bigger, broad group in town that has money, that wants to promote the city. And if the city is pro this, and we definitely align with those ideas, and we're not the wackadoos at the local film office.
Yeah.
No, the film office people are very nice. There are no wackadoos at the Tucson film office.
Yeah, just to clarify, there are no. So that gives us kind of the idea, like, you of course would measure brand awareness, like social media metrics are of course one good way to do that. Downloads, streams, whatever of this scripted podcast, plus any of your previous materials that are already out there, Eddie Mummy, et cetera, et cetera. Like, those are also good measurements. Is that how you're planning on measuring this growth in brand awareness, or what's kind of your thoughts surrounding that?
Right. I was thinking, X amount of increase on Instagram. That's basically the one that we all feel comfortable using. So we don't want to, try to get 1 million followers on TikTok, because who knows what the heck that means.
Yeah. I don't know. That's sort of the thing that I have a hard time working with, is we have a defined model of how you convert kind of Instagram or YouTube into monetization. These other things like TikTok, I presume, monetizes the same way, but I actually have no idea. I'm realizing I'm becoming like the new boomer, because I've just completely taken that as, like, I was actively against TikTok, much like I was against Quibi. I think they're both bad. Quibi's a thing in the past. TikTok looked like it was going to be a thing of the past because like the US was going to ban it or whatever, but now it turns out I guess that didn't happen. Facebook bought them, or somebody bought them. Anyways.
Something like that.
So the point is, okay, so you kind of have built-in metrics, so it does seem like that part is measurable. What are the specific numbers that you're kind of looking to gain over 6 months, the whole year? I mean, the year is dedicated to brand awareness. That's it's like 1 year can be the year of like, for instance, this past year for that unnamed company that I work for was the year of the customer, because we saw a dip in our NPS score, Net Promoter Score. So we had to make sure that we're still delivering and all that kind of stuff. And so one of the company goals that was tied to our bonuses and stuff was the increase in our Net Promoter Score to this number. And we achieved that, thankfully. So hopefully I'll be getting my money. But so what are the specific kind of numbers that you're looking for? Do you have kind of an idea of what you're looking for?
Well, we're almost at 700 followers on Instagram, which is pretty good.
That's pretty good.
I want to get that to 1,000.
Yeah. I think that's a good place to be.
On our podcast streams, like I was saying, I think we talked about this last week.
Mm-hmm.
How if you get 136 downloads, you're the top 50% of podcasts.
Yep.
So I don't want to compare myself to other podcasts. I kind of want to compare it to the events that we used to do here in town at the Rialto, like the movie screening, the mummy screening, the murder mystery night. So I would like a goal of 200 to 300 streams per episode.
Mm-hmm.
And so that definitely puts us in the top 50% of podcasts.
Yeah. And it does. And like, that's kind of the unique thing. I'd be very curious to learn. And I think you're in a very unique position to be able to learn this. I'd be very curious to learn because there are obvious ways that, like, at the top of the list, right, is Rogan, and he gets, X amount of downloads per episode. And that amount of downloads just maps over to sold out shows. So he does sold out comedy shows all the time. And they're not related necessarily, but there are this many podcast listeners who will then go buy tickets and go to his show to see him live. So you're in a very unique position, because it's like right now, actual physical going to a theater or screening anything is kind of, there's a kibosh on that. Like, we can't really move forward with that. But vaccines are being pushed out. Last night, the FDA, like, we are approved in the US for pushing the vaccine out. Like, slowly, I think things will, because I like, there was a calculator on the New York Times that said, like, oh, you can calculate like a rough estimate of where your position in line will be for a vaccine based on your risk profile. So I just entered in my information, and I'm like 144 millionth in line. So it's going to be a long time for me.
Wow.
And for a lot of people, but at least the higher risk populations we're going to start to, see some results through this, hopefully. So given that, it's like you're in a very interesting position where we can actually start to think about this very analytically, because all you're doing right now is going to be streaming podcasts, like this podcast, the scripted podcast, Eddie Mummy, any of your other like movie assets. And so in this growth in brand awareness for this next year, hopefully by 2022, you can actually like get people to watch things in a physical location, in a theater or in whatever, right?
Right.
So we can actually monitor the data as you go, and we can then figure out how your streams convert to physical in-present seat, audience. And I think that's a pretty interesting, that's going to be an interesting thing to study and to look at.
That's definitely an interesting, that definitely is something we should track. But my thinking was, we do a podcast, we build an audience, we gain the attention of someone willing to invest in the project. We make the project by the time everything's cleared up, hopefully, with this vaccine, with maybe a new administration doing at least a little bit. And,
like listening to scientists and experts. Maybe.
Not ignoring it, which never works. It never works, people. If you just don't ignore a medical issue, just get it taken care of. It's way easier to get it done early.
Yeah, don't ignore your bills. I briefly went through a phase where I ignored, and I have never used credit cards much, but I briefly went through a phase where I was ignoring my credit card bill, and that in no time was a lot of money. I've paid it off entirely now, but that was a problem.
Yeah.
So don't ignore shit. Take care of it. But that's a whole different episode.
So hopefully in this time span, because it's going to be another year of not being able to safely make a film cost effectively.
Right. Yep.
So I don't have an extra $50,000 to add to a budget just for COVID compliance.
PPE, you know, so yeah, I totally get that.
And, making sure everybody gets the test, who's on set, what if we have to shut down for a week because someone tested positive? What's going on there? So I'd rather not or avoid all of that because it's $50,000. It's like a fifth of the budget that I want to raise for making a movie,
Yeah.
It's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money.
So then the idea was build an audience, get the funding, make a movie. By the time we can go out and about in theaters will be the time that we're done with it and can release it and everybody can come watch it.
Yeah.
So exactly what you were saying.
I like that. Well, there's your time binding. Like, I like that. It's interesting how I feel like the way that you just think about these things doesn't 100% align, but you kind of naturally start to time bind yourself and you get measurable because you're like looking towards things that are measurable. Your streams, your downloads, your followers, your et cetera. So it's like you kind of naturally think in a way that's almost like a SMART goal.
Because I am smart.
Can I
except with my vocabulary today.
Except with retrieving the word of whatever documenting this current time and space in Tucson is.
Is it documenting? It's probably something simple like documenting.
It's like it is just documenting.
Yeah, it is just documenting.
I think I actually honestly don't have that many complaints about that. It's like, it's not formalized into a smart format, but honestly, I don't think you need to because you have all the ingredients there.
Right. I mean, there's definitely time frames. Like February is a podcast launch. So we have X amount of things to do before February.
Right.
Let's say 2022 is our goal to release a movie. So we have the whole year to build our audience up, to get our 200, 300 streams, to get our 1,000 IG followers, maybe more. Who knows? I'd also like to figure out a way to, create merchandise, so that can also support the brand awareness thing. Like, oh, where'd you get that shirt? It's from Elephant Scout, stuff like that.
And that's something that I see in Tucson that really, really works because places like Phoenix and have you heard? Seattle, for instance, is known as one of these cities that has the quote-unquote deep freeze. Do you know what I'm talking about or what I'm referring to?
No.
So Seattle, everyone's a dick. And I don't mean that in the sense that, like, I don't like people from Seattle. No. I mean that, and it's a known thing. Like, it's on the internet. And people from Seattle agree to it. It's like nobody... we'll just see somebody on the street and be like, oh, hey, like, I like that thing or, whatever. Or, do you need help with your groceries or whatever? Like Seattle has the deep freeze. Everyone kind of sticks to themselves and does whatever. Tucson is not like that. Like you will end up having a conversation with someone at Chase. And then before you know it, you're, hanging out with them every weekend. Like that's Tucson. Or I keep seeing the same person on my route to work and we end up just chatting. Like that's Tucson. Tucson, it does not have the deep freeze. Phoenix is a little in between. Everyone's a little bit too scared of each other up here because like there's so many wackos like here that, shit goes sour too much. It kind of has the effect of like a big city because Phoenix is one of the biggest cities in the US and it has that effect where people don't trust each other possibly for good reason. But Tucson isn't like that. And so I think you really can, like, that's sort of what I was thinking is that it's like, man, if a Boys Night shirt came out the same time you were streaming Eddie Mummy, that would have been killer. I just know that would be killer.
It would. It probably still would be. But
it probably still will be. And it's like, if you can still get some retroactive streams off of that, like, hey, that's cool. But I really think like that... ideating towards merchandising yourself, I think, is a strong idea.
So, yeah, because I was talking to another Elephant Scouter, Francisco, and how his approach is always about scenes and moments in movies, and my approach is always about character and character-driven moments versus scene-driven moments. And I feel like a lot of the characters we have say, like, either something really stupid that's catchy or something cool that's catchy. And I do think that a lot of the characters in our projects lean towards being merchandised.
Yeah, dude, right off the bat, the first two things I'm thinking of course, I'm thinking of Eddie Mummy, but I'm also thinking of Good Cop, Mom Cop. Like those are the two that just immediately off the top, I'm like, oh yeah, you can definitely drive something through there.
So it's like, what do we do? Like, so it's just figuring out all that stuff and figuring out how to produce it and get it out there. Of course, I'd want to have it done locally because, if you do it locally, it's just going to add to the local audience value, the community sense that I'm trying to build from. Like, this is why I feel like independent filmmakers don't move to LA or New York. It's because they don't want to cast the wide net across the whole ocean. They just want to do a little fishing pole in the pond.
No, totally. Yeah, yes. I agree. I think that's a good, I think you've got, good alignment in terms of your overarching idea. And then you've got a bunch of like micro sort of, not micro, but like you've got multiple projects that you are using to drive yourself towards that overarching goal. And you have methods built within each of those. So I think you're in a really good place on those. With our last couple minutes, can I tell you about an idea for a project I had that that you may or may not want to get on board with?
Let's hear it.
Okay. Here's my idea, and this is super rough. I haven't thought anything of it because I know that there's a catchy title for this somewhere. But so up until now, you and I have done podcasts that are because I'm doing this podcast class through Skillshare because, like I said, I fucking paid for I paid for Skillshare up front, so whatever. So I was doing this podcast, and this guy was kind of saying, and first of all, tell me if you agree with this statement or not. He said there's two types of podcasts: educational and or like educational / informative and in entertainment.
Okay.
Well, do you agree with that premise?
Well, I do feel like it's either you listen to a podcast, so listen to people ramble about topics you want to learn about, or you just listen to topics of people complaining about what's happening in the entertainment world. So yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, well, basically it's like the idea is one is concept driven, which, you would say Ramen Profitable is concept driven. It's like here. I mean, there was a little bit me rambling about my week and, XYZ, but we're, talking about SMART goals, or we're talking about like, how do you actually execute on an idea effectively? How do you measure data? How do you, we do an episode we get guests like Preston. I was going to call him Tristan. Whoops. We get... We get guests like Preston, and we talk about specifically like, yeah, how did you work through naming? Because right now I'm having a naming issue. Like, how did you do that? Like, it's informative. And I think we toe the line between informative and entertainment, but entertainment is more character driven. It's not concept driven. It's more just like, oh, we get to know this person, and this person has these kinds of stories, or this person, does that. Like it's more. So here was kind of my thought about doing a limited run series. It's naturally limited because the content can only go so far. A limited run series. I think this is 8 or 9 episodes. I don't actually have a firm count on it. You would have a firm count, and this is why I'm telling you about it, because you are much more well versed in this subject than I am. Where we do a limited run series on an entertainment podcast. So not informative, but entertainment. And the specific thing that we're going to be talking about, I'm going to be watching the Fast and the Furious series front to back for the first time ever. And we're going to go through movie by movie. And I'm going to fucking work through whether or not, because I have seen parts of the first one, and then that's really it. I know nothing about the franchise, but I've been shitting on it for years. And I don't actually know if any of these are good or not. So we're going to work through these, and we're going to work through what's good, what's bad about them. And we're going to get into a heated debate about whether or not the Fast and the Furious is a good franchise.
Oh, this is you and me?
It could be.
You've already made some false statements. There is no bad in the Fast and Furious franchise. They are good.
Okay. Well, that remains to be seen.
No, it's the fact. Just because you haven't seen it doesn't mean it's not true.
I guess that's true. I haven't really tested for gravity, but gravity exists.
But who are you going to do this with?
I don't know. I haven't figured out the right cast, but I was thinking, like, you're an obvious choice because you have already done The Fast and the Furious, and you're an outspoken advocate, whereas I guess the idea is that
We need a third person. If it were to be you, me, and someone else that hates them, that's seen them all and hates them. Yeah,
we need to balance it out with somebody. Exactly. Those were exactly my thoughts. It's like, you've already been through, you in general have a positive feeling of it. I'm trying to get myself back to neutral because I'm realizing that all my previous kind of assertions were just like made in my head. They're not concrete by anything.
Right.
So now I need to find somebody. So it's like, I almost want to put a post out there, something like, hey, has anyone watched all, like, what is it, 8 or 9 movies?
There's 9 was supposed to come out this year, but it got delayed.
Okay, so there's 8. So has anyone watched all 8 Fast and the Furious and have a strong opinion about it? Shoot me a comment below. So that was my idea for a limited run series, just to kind of get in because this was just an idea, to have another asset on our, launch by 2022 podcast network.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And also it would just be a foray into a different format than, kind of what we're used to right now.
Because Fast 9 was supposed to come out, and then they're doing 10, and I think 11 is going to be the last one.
Wait, they're planning 2 more movies?
Yeah.
That'd be 3 more movies from current.
Well, the one's already in the can, as they say in the business.
What is that? Like the film's in the can?
Like it's already shot and it's edited and all ready to go.
Okay.
But yeah, so there's planning on making 2 more. Releasing 1, making 2.
Okay.
And I'm 90% sure one of them is going to be in space. And I'm really excited.
Wait, it's going to be Fast and Furious in space. Like that? Like,
yeah, in space.
Oh my God. See, okay. Well, I'll reserve my judgment. I'll, now I have to watch the, let me ask you this. Do you think the series is good from the start? Maybe these are all good questions that I should ask as the introductory, like a 10-minute intro episode before we actually launch. But like, do you think the series is good from the start, or do you think it builds over time and becomes good?
I think it builds over time and becomes good. I do think the first one is really a really solid movie. The second one is okay. It's okay. The third one, not good. But once you get to 4, they get away from like drag race movies and turn into heist movies, and so I think that's when they get good, is when they turn into heist movies. Obviously, the 5th one is the best one, and then 6 is pretty solid. Yeah, obvious. When you see them all, you'll agree. 5th one is the best one.
Fast 5 that you're referring to.
Fast 5. Okay. Yeah, they're in Brazil. It's a great movie.
That's the best one. Okay.
Yeah, and then 6 is good too, and 7 is a sad one because that's when Paul Walker dies. And then 8 is pretty insane, but still, Charlize Theron is great as the bad guy.
That's the most recent one
that has been that we can see.
That we can see. The 9th one is the most recent one in that it's complete, but we can't watch it yet.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. See, that actually works out pretty well because it's like we do a limited run on 8 episodes, and then when the 9th one comes out, we do a special. And then eventually when 11 comes out and caps it all out, then we do a reunion show for 2 episodes only. So it's self-contained.
Right.
Presumably. So that's my idea. That's my pitch, is that we're going to step through the Fast and the Furious series, and I'm going to figure this out. I want to figure out if these are good movies, if these are bad movies. Was I correct in my assumptions? Was I just being a dick? These are all questions that can be answered in Life 1/4 Mile at a Time, the limited podcast series. No, there's going to be a better name. I just haven't worked it out yet.
Yeah. Well, there'll definitely be a better name.
Chris Scott doesn't like my names. He doesn't like Flow Roll, and he doesn't like my podcast names.
There's a podcast out there already called Too Fast, Too Forever, which is a terrible name.
I see what they're doing, because my instinct was also to go with the Too Fast, Too Furious thing, because that's the one that like comes up the most. But I definitely wouldn't have. I would have done something more referential towards a podcast rather than whatever the fuck they did. Not to comment on it.
Yeah, no, I have no idea what they're doing. Okay, yeah. It was in 2017 when it came out, so we're fine.
Yeah, we're fine. Yeah. There have been more recent releases of Fast and Furious movies since then.
There have been, yeah.
Yeah, so they're outdated. They're played. Our stuff is current, up to date. Yeah. Well, I'll do some brainstorming on some titles, but that's something I wanted to start working on a little bit because, good lord, there's so many movies.